Are you a suspect right now, Nick, or my partner?
Both. And there's a third option. I'm not ready to say it yet.
Lightning cracked. Again in that half second of white light, Aisha's eyes stopped moving. Near the taxi pillar, a man in a thin jacket, fingers easing into the zipper of an elderly woman's crossbody bag. The motion was slow, practiced slow, the kind of slow that only reads as slow. Once you know what to look for, Aisha set her carry-on down. Her feet were already moving before the thought caught up. She had his wrist. In 2 seconds, arm pinned against the pillar. In one more, the old woman hadn't even started screaming, yet the rain was loud enough to swallow the whole thing. Half the people around them never even looked up. Don't move, not in Korean. Didn't matter. The voice landed like a hand on the chest. The man went completely still. Hey, let him go. Low voice, steady Korean, coming from somewhere behind her left shoulder. Aisha didn't turn. I caught him. Pickpocket. He needs to be detained. Do you speak Korean? No, but I know what I saw. A beat of silence, real silence, the kind you only get between thunder and the next thunder. Then the storm filled it back, and Aisha turned slowly. The man standing behind her was in a police jacket, shoulders already soaked through no umbrella, taller than she'd expected, and his face gave nothing away. Not surprise, not gratitude. He was just watching her like he'd been watching her for a while. Kang Jae-min, officer, Incheon Airport, police substation, 35 years, old, 7 years. At the same post, 7 years, quietly reopening the same file every few months. When he thought no one was looking at pulled it out again tonight. Couldn't sleep and volunteered for the overnight shift rather than stare at his ceiling. Aisha didn't know any of that yet. While the pickpocket walked to the substation, Aisha pushed her wet locks back from her face with one hand. The rain had pulled back to a grumble. The lightning hadn't. Every flash turned the terminal blue-white for half a second, and in each half second, Jaemin's face appeared and disappeared like something being decided. He handed her a slip of paper, a temporary incident report. You'll need to come in tomorrow for a formal statement. Airport substation. She took the paper without looking at it, looked at him. Instead, are you a suspect? Right now, or my partner? Something shifted just below his eyebrows. Just barely. The first expression seen on his face. I'm not sure I follow. You were watching me before the pickpocket happened. Don't try to tell me you weren't. He didn't answer. His gaze moved to the rain outside, steady, deliberate, like a man buying himself time. He wasn't going to use. Aisha tucked the slip into her jacket, grabbed her carry-on, and turned 3 steps toward the exit when his voice caught her between the shoulders. Detective Bennett. She stopped. Her name, her rank said cleanly, like he'd practiced it, except she hadn't introduced herself to anyone tonight. She turned back slowly. Jae-min stood in the blue-white lightning, jacket soaked, face unreadable again. I have something to tell you. Inside the Incheon Airport substation, a fluorescent tube was losing its argument with existence, flickering every 30 seconds or so, like it kept forgetting to stay on. Someone should have replaced it months ago. No one had. Jae-min set a folder on the desk, thin, embarrassingly thin. For 7 years of work, he smoothed the cover once with 2 fingers and left his hand there. Aisha sat across from him and stared at it. Then she reached into her carry-on and pulled out her own folder, thick, heavy, in the particular way of something carried a very long distance. Both folders on the desk, side by side. Jae-min opened hers to the first page. His hand stopped on the name. The fluorescent light chose that exact moment to flicker. How do you know this name? Not a question. The inflection was flat, the kind of flat that happens when someone has burned all their emotion off and is running on something colder. 10 years ago. Missing persons database, New York City, Korean national last known location. Seoul. Jae-min said nothing outside. The rain kept going. They spread both files across the desk. At 2 a.m, 2 vending machine coffees went cold between them, while the edges of the case started to match up. Aisha's New York threads locking into Jaemin's. Soul threads in ways that should have been impossible. And somehow weren't. Not perfectly. The more pieces fit, the stranger the gaps. Got this part, Aisha. Pressed a finger. To one page, March 2015. CCTV footage around. Mapo-gu entire block of it. Gone listed as a system error. I know, and the case still got closed? I didn't close it. Short answer. He picked up his coffee cup and put it back down. Without drinking the handle. Had a hairline crack running through the glaze. The kind of crack a cup gets from being held too many times. Aisha looked at that crack. For a moment didn't say anything about it. The next morning they walked the Mapo-gu alley together. Jae-min a half step ahead. The overnight rain had pooled in every low spot on the pavement, and Aisha's white sneakers surrendered completely to the second puddle. Why didn't you warn me about that? I was going to you. We're already in it. You could re-said something. At the same time you told me you didn't speak Korean. I said that to the pickpocket. The corner of Jaemin's mouth moved just a fraction, barely enough to count. But Aisha caught it. She filed it away. Somewhere this man knows how to smile. Might need that information later. At the end of the alley, an old dry cleaner's. That's where Jae-min stopped. Faded sticker on the glass door. A open sign hanging, slightly crooked, like it had given up on straight. She was last seen here 10 years ago. Aisha looked through the glass. Inside, an old man worked a steam iron across a shirt face, peaceful going about his morning like the last decade hadn't happened. They sat on the steps across from the dry cleaners. Aisha stretched her legs out. First time in Seoul. Doesn't feel like a first time, though. That's weird, right? Where are you from? Originally Brooklyn. New York. Brooklyn has a lot of alleys. Plenty, but they smell different here. It's like the old stuff is still alive in the walls. Somewhere Brooklyn smells like the old stuff got pushed out and replaced. Jae-min sat with that for a while. Had lived in Seoul for 35 years and never once thought about what it smelled like. Why this case? He asked. It's nowhere near your jurisdiction. Aisha kicked a small piece of gravel off the step with the toe of her ruined sneaker. My mother asked me to before she died. Jae-min didn't ask anything else. Aisha didn't add anything. A gust moved through the alley, and the crooked, open sign swayed without straightening. That evening, Aisha stood in her guest house bathroom, holding a photograph. Her mother, laughing, standing in front of a sign that said Seoul in both English and Korean. Before Aisha was born, proof that her mother had stood on these same streets and left something unfinished. The dry cleaner knew something. That much became obvious the second time they showed up. First visit, cooperative enough, in the careful way of someone being careful. Second visit, door locked. At 2 in the afternoon, open sign still hanging. Old man nowhere. Visible. Jae-min knocked 3 times. Nothing. Then he heard movement, the sound of someone moving away from the door, not toward it. Aisha slipped around the side of the building. There was a ventilation window, cracked open an inch or 2 inside. The old man's voice, low and pressed down. They came back, a cop and a foreign woman. Together, tell me what to do. Aisha looked back at Jae-min. His jaw was set. They pulled back to the alley entrance without a word and waited for the call to end. A few minutes later, from inside, the sound of the iron starting up. Again, completely normal. Nothing to see here, nothing at all. Tracing the call took 2 days. Jae-min couldn't use official channels. If someone inside the department had touched this file 7 years ago, going through the system meant tipping them off. Aisha listened to him explain this and set her coffee down. When you say inside the department, you mean inside the police? Unconfirmed, but you think? So he looked out the window instead of answering. By now, Aisha knew how to read his silences. That one meant yes, and I've thought about almost nothing else for 7 years. That night she walked the Mapo-gu alley alone, late past midnight. The whole neighborhood compressed into the glow of a convenience store. Through the glass rows of instant noodle cups, a part-time kid asleep at the register with his chin on his chest. Aisha stopped in front of the light. It reminded her of a 24-hour deli In Crown Heights, same tired warmth, different language, on the signs. The light was warmer here, though she noticed that on the second day, a name came up legal director at a mid-sized logistics company, headquartered in Gangnam. Aisha ran the search. While she did, Jaemin went still in a way that was different from his usual. Still, she looked up his face. Had something in it she hadn't seen before. Not shock, more like recognition. The face of someone who has been walking towards something for a long time and just realized they've arrived. You know him, Jaemin pushed back from the desk and walked to the window. Seoul outside, low sky, the kind of overcast that doesn't commit to rain, but doesn't quit. Either he stood there long enough that Aisha thought he might not speak at all. That case. You've been chasing he? Said it to the window. It's about my sister Aisha. Set her pen down. It made a small sound against the desk. In that room at that moment, it was the loudest thing. You knew from the beginning? From the moment I saw the name in your file, then. Why didn't you? Because you would have pulled me off. The case conflict of interest. Aisha got up from her chair, 2 steps toward him. She stopped there, 2 steps away, not closing the gap. You're right. That's exactly what I would have done. She let that sit. That's why I'm angry. Jaemin turned from the window and looked at her. She looked back. The air between them had weight to it, her anger and her understanding stacked on top of each other like 2 things that had no business being the same temperature. Then her phone went off. Unknown number, Korean area code. She answered. Detective Bennett? A woman's voice, careful, like someone stepping across ice. You don't know me. I'm the daughter of the man who runs that dry cleaners. I have something to tell you. And I have a photo. A pause from the night. It happened 10 years ago. Aisha's eyes went to Jaemin. He saw it in her face. Before she said a word, 2 steps. They didn't matter anymore. 10 years is a long time to keep a secret. But secrets don't age the way people do. They just sit there, patient and intact, waiting for someone stubborn enough to come looking. Jaemin hid his sister's name because he knew the rules. The person closest to the wound is the first one they send home. What he didn't account for was someone showing up from the other side of the world who'd been holding the same wound all along. Sometimes the truth doesn't need you to chase it. It just needs 2 people from opposite ends of everything to finally end up in the same alley. Park Soyun was 38, shed, picked a small cafe near Hongdae, ordered a coffee, and hadn't touched it. Both hands wrapped around the cup like she was borrowing its warmth and didn't want to give it back. She pulled out her phone, an old photo file, low resolution, the kind of grainy that comes from a security camera doing its best in bad light. March 2015. Night, the alley outside. Her father's dry cleaners. A young woman getting into a black car. Not dragged, not pulled, getting in on her own. But beside the rear license plate, caught in one lucky second, when the street lamp actually worked. A man's face. Aisha zoomed in. Jaemin looked at the screen. Neither of them spoke. My father only showed it to me. Soyeon said. Her voice was steady, in the way of someone who'd been practicing steady for years. Someone came to him afterward, told him to forget he ever saw anything. He was scared. I understood why. She looked down at her coffee. But I'm not scared anymore. The man in the photo was Choi Byung-do, 57, legal director, the same logistics company they'd been circling all week. While Jaemin confirmed the name, Aisha was already inside. The New York database Choi name showed up there. 10 years back, buried in fine print, beside a signature line. He was in New York a decade ago for what? Corporate MA, legal advisory work. But that's not the part. She turned the screen to face him. My mother's name is in the witness list. Jaemin read it. Diane Bennett, social worker, New York, Immigrant Services Center. Present 10 years ago. Aisha put the laptop down. I didn't come here on vacation. I came here for you. I came here because of you. Specifically, from the beginning. The cafe went quiet. Soyeon quietly gathered her bag and found somewhere else to be. Good instincts My mother helped. Her Aisha picked up where the silence left off. The woman in the photo, she had immigration, paperwork issues. My mother connected her with resources, found her a place to stay, and then the woman went. Dark, no contact. Nothing, my mother thought. It was her fault. That she had done something wrong, sent her somewhere unsafe, so she spent years trying to find out what happened until the day she died. And then she handed it to me, the file and one name. Aisha looked at him. Yours, Jae-min, went very still. How did she have my name 7 years ago? She called the Seoul Metropolitan Police. The officer who took her report. That was you, the memory. Came back without warning, a phone call with heavy American accented Korean on the other end, switching to English halfway, through a woman's voice. Worn thin, please. Find her, please, then. The line went dead. He'd tried to trace the number, already disconnected. That woman had been Aisha's mother. They ended up on a bench along the Han River that evening, neither of them having decided to go there exactly, just walking until they stopped. The wind off the water was serious. Aisha kept pushing her locks out of her face, kept having to do it again. Are you angry? She asked. Yes. You didn't say anything? You didn't either. She laughed, an actual laugh, out loud, the kind that can't be planned. Jae-min heard it for the first time, lower than he'd expected, easier than anything else. About her. Why? Are both a complete disaster? Yes. I feel more comfortable right now than I have this whole trip. That's insane. He didn't answer. The Han River moved across the water. The city lights shook on the surface, like they couldn't quite hold their shape. They sat and watched that for a while. Two people who'd been carrying the same weight from opposite directions, finally setting it down in the same place. The comfort didn't last. On the walk back to her guest house, a car fell in behind her. She thought nothing of it. First turn, second turn. Same car. She cut left, down a narrower street. The car followed. She stopped walking and texted Jae-min a photo of the license plate and 3 words, someone's following me. His reply came in 30 seconds. Don't move. The car stopped, both doors opened. 2 men got out. Aisha did not step back. Her feet stayed flat on the pavement, a reflex from a long time ago, from a version of Brooklyn that taught her the lesson. Early, the moment you retreat, you've already lost. From the far end of the alley, footsteps, fast ones. Jae-min came around the corner at a run, tie loose, jacket half zipped, the look of a man who'd left somewhere in a hurry and wasn't thinking about how he looked. The 2 men clocked him. Jae-min had his badge out before he'd fully stopped moving. Hand steady, Officer Kang Jae-min. Both of you stop where you are. A look passed between the 2 men. Then they got back in the car. The door closed. The car pulled out of the alley slowly, unhurried, like it was their idea. The plate was already photographed. Aisha exhaled long, slow. What would have happened if you'd been a minute later? I wasn't. How did you get here so fast? He paused just a beat. I was already on my way before you texted. She looked at him. He'd already turned toward the alley entrance, scanning the street. The tips of his ears were red. Seoul in October. We'll do that. Probably that's all it was. Choi Byung-do was arrested 3 days later. Soyeon's photograph. The New York database records 7 years of fragments that Jae-min had been quietly collecting in the margins of a career, in a folder he'd never officially filed. All of it, finally adding up to a complete sentence. 10 years ago, Choi had tried to buy the silence of a witness to internal corporate fraud. When she refused, he found another way. The safe house Diane Bennett had arranged became the tool he used to locate her. That's what Aisha's mother had been carrying all those years. That's why she never stopped looking. But the woman wasn't dead. A single document from Choi's office drawer changed everything. Kang Yu-jin, Jae-min's sister, current address, Busan, a different name, a different life. Still breathing. Jae-min held that piece of paper for a long time, without moving. Aisha stood next to him. She didn't say anything, didn't reach for his arm, didn't offer a word, just stayed there. Sometimes that's the whole thing, just staying there. When Jae-min took the train to Busan, Aisha stayed in Seoul. She knew, without having to think about it, this wasn't her moment to be in a brother and sister. 10 years apart, that room belonged to them. She walked the city, instead all day, down the stone wall path, beside Gyeongbokgung, into the side streets of Insadong, eventually stopping at a street food cart where she bought tteokbokki spicy rice cakes and immediately regretted the confidence with which she'd done. So too spicy, she drank water. 3 times finished. Every last piece. Anyway, late afternoon. A message from Jae-min. No words, just a photo, a cafe, with a view of the ocean. 2 coffee cups on the table, both of them half empty. Aisha stared at the photo. Longer than she needed to, then. She typed back good one word. It took her a while. To send it, her eyes kept going blurry. For a reason, she decided not to examine departure. Day Terminal 1, Incheon Airport. The same entrance where all of this started. The sky was clear, no thunder, no lightning. She stood at the entrance for a second longer than she needed to. It felt strange, seeing it like this, ordinary. The first time she'd seen this building, it was being torn apart by a storm. Her carry-on was heavier than when she arrived in Sadong Souvenirs. A small ceramic cup she hadn't needed to buy, a jar of tteokbokki sauce for her mother's altar, and a map of Seoul that Jae-min had handed her without a word before she left folded. And when she opened it, a small blue ink mark on one street, in Mapo-gu ballpoint, pen nothing else, no note. She cleared check-in, was almost to the security line when her phone rang. Jae-min, she stopped, let the crowd move around her, step to the side, back against a pillar, and answered, "Safe travels." "That's all you've got?" A pause, short even after. "You're gone. This city is going to remember your voice." She laughed. The same laugh, low, unhurried, the one that couldn't be planned. It crossed through the phone to wherever he was. Kang Jae-min. Was that a confession? Still gathering evidence. How long is that going to take? Come back and I'll tell you. Aisha looked at the security entrance, looked at the line, grabbed her carry-on handle a little tighter. Then, "I want to know soon." She walked through the security checkpoint without hanging up her flight to New York, boarded in 3 hours. And Seoul, she already knew, was the kind of city you could always come back to. From the very first night, these two people hid things from each other. And somehow in all that hiding, what came through was the most honest thing. Either of them had a daughter who crossed an ocean to finish what her mother couldn't, a brother who held a 7-year vigil without ever asking anyone to hold it with him. In the end, they found what they were looking for. The case closed, but whatever opened up between them, that's still very much in progress. And honestly, that's the best part of the whole story.
Aisha came to Seoul for a file, for a name on a piece of paper, for her mother's last, unfinished thing. But what she carried home was a map with a single ink mark on it. A street shed, already walked down once, and would probably walk down again. There's something in the destination that pulls you somewhere, and the thing you actually find. There are rarely the same thing. You go looking for closure. You find a person. You go looking for answers. You find someone who's been asking the same question from the reason other side of the world. Life has always been better at detours than straight lines. Jae-min spent 7 years working alone. Not because he had to, because he thought the weight of it was his. To carry that being, the one most affected, meant being the one most disqualified. He was wrong, and it cost him years. The thing that finally broke the case open wasn't his 7-year folder. It was a stranger from Brooklyn who refused to let go of the same truth. There's a version of strength that's really just stubbornness, dressed up nice. The braver move, the one that actually works. is letting someone stand next to you. Diane Bennett spent the last years of her life convinced that a good thing she did had gone wrong, that her kindness had been the instrument of someone else's suffering. She never got to find out. She was mistaken. But without that one phone call, that one address, that one act of ordinary human decency, Jae-min and Aisha never meet. The good you put into the world doesn't always come back to you in a shape you'd recognize. Sometimes it goes somewhere you'll never see and becomes something you could never have planned it. Keeps moving even after you're gone. This story is a work of fiction.